Hello, and welcome to Puppy's World. As today I bring you a two-channel listening experience like none other. This video is called Setting Up a Two-Channel Listening Experience or Configuration to Your Liking to experience the best possible matrix of sound. I have here a Marantz SR7010 surround sound processor receiver amplifier, an Emotiva BassX A300 power amplifier, as well as a Monster Power Center HDS 5100. I also have a Technics SL220 turntable with an Ortofon 2M red cartridge. I will be setting these things up along with my SVS Prime Tower speakers, of course. Every piece of equipment is almost entirely brand new, including SVS speakers, Emotiva power amplifier, Marantz AV receiver, as well as some of the furniture that they sit on. The carpeting is less than 2 years old. The aesthetic add-ons to the room and treatment are all less than 2 years old, as even the outlets that the equipment is plugged into is less than 6 months old. All being either Edison outlets, Edison AC outlets from AudioQuest, and or Pangea AC outlets. Okay, let's get started, folks, as I'm going to illuminate you some here with some light from our good friend the sun, as we will go ahead and take a peek at the back half of our equipment here. Keep in mind, folks, when you are setting up any type of configuration, I recommend always cleaning every possible surface and every piece of equipment that you have. After doing so, I recommend setting things up in the configuration or space that you'd want them to be in and go from wiring there after that. You can choose aftermarket wiring or you can choose factory supplied wiring. I myself in this configuration will be choosing all AudioQuest wiring as opposed to Pangea cables and wiring that I've used in the past previously. I find that the AudioQuest wiring is quite affordable and quite top of the line or top notch, so to speak, for some of the equipment that we're using today. I'm going to be using a complete analog setup here. So we will be using no HDMI cables, no optical cables, no digital coax cables whatsoever. We are going to be utilizing 100% RCA cables, all from AudioQuest, and all truly analog setup here. So folks, let me get into it. I'm going to set up my equipment here properly. I'm going to wire my Emotiva amplifier into the pre-out sections of my Marantz AV receiver here. As you see from the back here, I will show you this nice jewelry setup of configuration of the Marantz. I'm going to be obviously utilizing just the front speakers here. However, in a normal two-channel configuration, specifically with an AV receiver as such, you would be utilizing the two speaker ports here, or binding posts, right out of your AV multi-channel receiver. You'd be connecting your phono turntable, of course, through the phono input, and then, of course, grounding him to eliminate any line noise or 60-yard hum that might be generated. Okay, folks, as Puppy here, Sergeant, takes a look outside, I will configure my setup, and we will have a go at this and see how changing my configuration from over here, which had a Sony 55-inch XBR 850C 4K television mounted to the wall, which, by the way, was mounted very, very, very high up, much too high for my liking or taste, and adding digital componentry or equipment soon thereafter. I'm going to start with choosing my soundstage and the best possible configuration for my speaker layout that I have here. Let's get started, folks. For this configuration, I will be utilizing 100% factory supplied AC power cables as such, as opposed to my AudioQuest AC power cables that I have utilized in the past, or Pangea AC power cables, which I have utilized in the past, I will be using 100% factory supplied power cables for Mr. Emotiva here and Mr. Marantz there. We'll be using 100% grounded, the exact identical cable on both pieces of equipment, but factory supplied. From there, after adding our power supplied cables, we will go ahead and connect speaker cables, and then we will go ahead and configure our RCA cables and setups, pre-outing our Emotiva from our Marantz SR7010 AV receiver. The point of which doing that is, or the goal in which we are trying to achieve, is supreme power and clarity to our SVS Prime Tower speakers here. By adding an external power amplifier to our surround sound receiver setup here, we have not only added 2 extra channels by adding capable of 2 speakers, but we have brought up our sound quality in such a way that is, well, uncomparable to any solid-state amplifier that I have heard. The goal here is to achieve the best possible analog sound from a 2-channel setup while utilizing these SVS speakers. From here, I will be going and changing the speakers one by one to different sets, different towers, different bookshelf speakers with different stands. From there, I will also be going ahead and comparing different cables. We will be utilizing factory supplied RCA cables as well as cheap generic RCA cables, and then moving up the line from AudioQuest to Pangea and other expensive brands, comparing the quality of them, the aesthetic properties of them, as well as, well, how they sound. That's the most important feature here for an audiophile. So, we're going to go ahead and get started hooking our equipment up. First, supplying power. Once we have plugged in our power conditioner surge protector, we see that we are getting a nominal 122.1 volts coming in. We are having a 0.5 amperage draw, as you can see, which is supplying just the power conditioner at this point. I have plugged in my turntable, of course, to this power conditioner, so to speak, at this point. And what I have chosen to utilize is the analog audio filter. I've chosen to plug my Technics SL220 into the processor port as opposed to the receiver port here. However, I do have a high current amplifier and a power amplifier here, so I'll be using my Marantz to plug into the main amplifier here, and I'll be using my Emotiva to be plugged into the spare amplifier here. However, that is not necessary, as I could kind of switch the two, as we will be doing in this video. During the course of this video, I will switch the outlets from the audio analog amplifier, or I'm sorry, the analog audio filter port here, you can see, as well as the high current filter here. All right, folks, as we get back to things here, I've gone ahead and plugged in my equipment into my power conditioner / surge protector. Of course, as you can see, into the digital audio filter ports of my Monster Power Center 5100. But I'm going to bring you into the other room here for a second, as I have a few cables that are sitting on the floor and a few other pieces of equipment, obviously. I've got a rat's nest of cables sitting here, as I'm going to choose my AudioQuest Type 4 speaker cables, as you can see. By choosing my AudioQuest Type 4 speaker cables, I'm going to use the best possible configuration I can for supplying sound and signal to my speakers from amplifiers. Now, there are 2 different options I have of going with here. I can specifically power my SVS Prime Tower speakers directly from my Emotiva power amplifier, or I could choose to power them directly out of the Marantz SR7010 amplifier. What I will be doing is switching both of those to give my viewers an idea of a comparison of what an analog true phono setup would sound operating just out of the Marantz SR7010, operating out of the Marantz preamped to the Emotiva Bass XA300 power amplifier, and also, in addition to that, operating 4 front channels. So I will have a pair of bookshelf speakers and or towers sitting next to these as well, and configure it set up where I have an AB type setup. However, one of them powered through the Marantz specifically, coming out of the left and right channel ports, binding posts of the AV receiver here. And the larger speakers or towers, or more difficult to drive speakers, being powered by the Emotiva power amplifier right here. The specifications are as such. My Emotiva Bass XA300 boasts 150 watts root mean squared by 2 at 2 channels driven with a total harmonic distortion value of 0.06. These specifications on the Marantz SR7010 are as such: 125 watts at 8 ohms, of course, as the Emotiva is at 8 ohms as well, as these speakers from SVS are rated at an 8 ohm impedance as well. The Marantz, as I said, is 125 watts RMS, root mean squared, by 2, of course at 7 channels driven, however. We are only concerning 2 channels driven here, or if not 4 channels driven, as we will be utilizing both front, left, and right ports out of the Marantz, as I said, and left and right ports out of Emotiva. We will go ahead and switch the two, and we'll go ahead and add a set of B speakers to the Marantz as well, and kind of flip between the two as well. We will be using our Ortofon 2M Red cartridge, and we'll be picking a album or LP to use. I'll go ahead and configure my speaker cables right now, as I'll be utilizing, of course, make sure to use amplifier end on one end, and speaker end on the other. Reversing the two will work, of course. However, these are designed for a specific line feed of moving a certain direction. Let's get to it, guys. All right, folks. For those of you that have never done this before, you're going to be very careful and ensure that you have the correct end once again. But also, if you take a look here, I have some tarnish buildup on my silver or gold-plated binding post here, a banana plug, so to speak, that plug directly into the binding post on the speaker and the amplifier. I'm going to ensure that all binding posts are tightly secured, making sure they are turned to the right very safely, making sure that we go ahead and give a solid connection to our power as well as our ground inputs on our speaker and our amplifier. Once we have done so, we will try to ensure that there are no complete 90-degree or 180-degree turns in our speaker cable, as we like to keep those as straight as possible, but also for aesthetic reasons, out of the way as much as possible. Once we have gone ahead and plugged in our speaker cable, we're going to obviously choose our RCA analog connection. For this situation, we will be utilizing an AudioQuest RCA, of course. I believe the Evergreen RCAs. I have, of course, several different lines of AudioQuest RCA cables that we can go ahead and compare, but for the start of this video, we will be using our Evergreens. We will go ahead and put these, of course, making sure to connect into our Emotiva amplifier, but then choosing which output we will be utilizing out of the Marantz. If you do notice here, there are directional arrows on these RCA cables, as we will go ahead and make sure that the arrows pointing in are going into our power amplifier where we are sending our signal from. Obviously, our signal is coming from, in this situation, our Marantz AB receiver, which is being sent from our Technics SL220 turntable. Let's go ahead and plug these in, guys. I do have to say, for those that have never experienced an Emotiva product, these things are built quite beautifully. There's an extremely oversized toroidal transformer in there, as I have illustrated before in my other videos. Although, also, the back of the Emotiva products make it extremely easy and capable to hook up any configuration, as things are clearly labeled, and they are also worldwide compatible, as of course you have a 230 volt selection or 115 volt selection. So if you are in Japan, or say you are in Australia or the United States, we have an option to use this worldwide. But we also have, if we pay attention here, a 5 to a 12 volt DC input and a 12 volt DC output for our triggers to utilize a remote to our unit here. We also have a status LED switch. All right, guys, let's get started. Now, we want to make sure that we are utilizing the correct output on our Marantz AB receiver. So what we are going to do is we are going to make sure that we locate our pre-out section of our AB receiver, which is here, and we are going to use the front two RCA outputs. As if we were to use any other output, we would only be experiencing a surround sound type of signal being sent from this receiver, which we cannot do with this analog 2-channel setup here. We are able to use the zone outputs here. However, if we were in another room, we would be utilizing those, sending a signal from this receiver into another room here. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we have our right connected to our front speaker outputs on the pre-out section here, as we'll go ahead and plug these in here, making sure that we're firmly plugged in there. And then I'm going to make sure that our speaker binding posts are completely turned in and tightened. Then we'll go ahead and connect our speaker cables. We have our power hooked up. We're going ahead and switch on our Monster Power Center, and we will go ahead and get to work here. And that does it, folks. We have set up our complete 2-channel listening configuration. We have plugged in all our equipment, we have wired it all together, and we have gone ahead and given it a test. Once we have configured such, I will go ahead and do my separate video on how the soundstage sounds in listening to our choice of several different LPs. Please check back and subscribe for more, as my first LP will be my choice of Bobby Bland, 2 Steps from the Blues. Thank you for watching, guys, and for a listening experience, please check back and subscribe for more.